All right, all right. Shall we get started? Okay, great, great, great. Oh, there goes that 15 I was looking for. Perfect. All right, so I'm happy to get started. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Lisa Mays of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. And on behalf of the Economic Empowerment Chair, Sister Lola Pines, I'd like to welcome you all to the first part of our three-part Wealthy Wednesday session. Tonight is Budgeting Basics. So at a high level, we believe and promote economic self-sufficiency. We also believe budgeting is the foundation of financial empowerment. So with budgeting being the foundation, this series will build on that foundation. The second series being financial planning, which is really the roadmap to financial stability. And then our third session, which is estate planning, which is essential for protecting and transferring assets at your will when time comes. So these sessions will be jam-packed, they'll be informative, and it's imperative that you are at all three sessions. So I really hope to see you there. So please join us, okay? But I digress. I'll stop, and I will pass along to the first VP of Programs, Sister Angela Richardson, for a chapter welcome.
Thank you so much, Sister Lisa. Good evening, everyone. I am Angela Richardson, and I am the acting first VP of Programs for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Metropolitan Washington, D.C. chapter. And it brings me great pleasure to bring you greetings on behalf of our chapter president, Eris Scales. The National Coalition, we have been around for over 40 years, and our mission is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls in the areas of health, economic empowerment, and education by way of public policy. And I just want to give a huge shout out to the Economic Empowerment Committee for the great work that they have been doing to provide you all with stellar programming like you will receive tonight. Throughout our chapter, we are doing such great work to ensure that Black women and girls have the tools that is necessary for them to succeed in those three areas I mentioned: health, economic empowerment, and education. So beyond tonight, I invite you to join us in our mission to advocate for yourselves, advocate for the other Black women in your community, and the younger Black women who are coming behind us. I encourage you to follow us on social media. We are at NCBWDC, and I look forward to seeing you all throughout this series and throughout our program year. We have so many things that we have coming towards D4DC in terms of the programs and services that we'll be providing by our chapter, and I look forward to seeing you there. I will pass it back over to Sister Lisa, our dynamic Wealthy Wednesdays chair, to keep this program going.
Thank you so much, Acting First VP of Program, Sister Angela Richardson. So I'm very excited to introduce our speaker tonight. Her bio is long, so I won't dare read the bio. And frankly, the first several slides of her presentation are really and truly about herself. So I will pass it on over to Andrea, but just know that I'm very excited to hear her speak, and I know that you all will take a ton away from this session. So, I'll be quiet and allow Andrea to do her thing. Andrea from Capital Consulting, please begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Just making sure that shares. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Smith. And like Lisa mentioned, I'm actually very excited to be here tonight, and I have a lot to share. I hope you guys take what I'm presenting, and I want this session to be as engaging as possible. So if there's a question that you may have, feel free to type it in the chat. If I can't answer that question because I don't know everything and I don't pretend to know everything, but if there's something that I can't answer, I will certainly make sure that I capture your information so that I can send you the response to you after this session. I apologize if you hear my son sneeze or cough. Everything is A-okay over here, but he's a little under the weather right now. So today's session, is entitled Wait Till I Get My Money Right. And that's an ode to Kanye West. Okay, you got it. So I would like to make sure that I always teach others about my path to financial independence in hopes of helping them to get to their path of independence. And I always start off with a Chinese proverb. And so this one is, one second. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man a fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And the reason why I like to start off with this Chinese proverb is because there's so many things that people can do for you. But when you're doing things for other people, it kind of handicaps them. And so they are limited to the extent that you can help them. And I don't want that to be the case for anybody that I interact with. I like them to give them the tools and the knowledge that they need so that they can have the resources to be able to absorb what I'm teaching and then be able to do it for themselves, their families, and their network. So again, everything that I'm doing today is to help to empower you, to make you independent, financially free, and so that you can create wealth for generations to come. And when I say generations to come, you are the definition of what that generation means to you. It could be your community, it could be your family. I like to also share who I was. So I was raised in a single parent household to a mom. I had 5 siblings. We have 5 siblings in Northwest DC. She was a first generation college graduate. And I like to share that story because if it wasn't for her, she was actually the one that changed the trajectory for her nieces and nephews, her future children. She just really changed the outlook for our entire family. And I don't know if anybody on this call or in this session is charged with that power to be able to change the trajectory for wealth for your family. And if you are on this call, I'm so excited that you're here because if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be where we are today. I was homeless as a child as a result of a house fire. So I actually know what it means to have everything or to think you know that you have everything that you need and then to wake up the next day and not have anything except the breath in your body. And so it was actually during that time when we experienced that house fire, I was about 9 years old, that the community support that we received from our schools, that my siblings and I attended, my mom's workplace, the church, the community, everybody really came together to pour into us to make sure that we had the resources that we needed to continue on that rebuilding effort. And that was where I get that community inspiration from. I like to make sure that in addition to me getting where I want to go in terms of my professional, personal, and financial goals, I like to make sure that I'm doing my part to educate or to give back to the community. So that's also part of the reason why I'm here today, because I want to take the skills that I've learned and make sure I give it back to others. I've also been a entrepreneur since the age of 16. So I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit in terms of building wealth, making money for myself, all in the effort of not having to ask someone else for money. So that just came from a need. And then I'm also a graduate of DC Public Schools here in DC, as well as Howard University 2 times. Sorry, okay. So who I am today, I always like to share who I was and then introduce to who I am because we all have a story, right? I'm sharing you guys my story, my inspiration, where I get that drive to want to succeed, to become financially independent, to become financial free. And I share that to say, you all have your story, right? And I want you guys to identify where is that passion, where is that drive, what is it that you want to achieve? So again, like I mentioned, I'm a 2-time Howard University graduate with a BBA and MBA in accounting. I'm currently an audit director for the federal government. And like Lisa mentioned, I also own Capital Consulting LLC, where I spend primarily the bulk of my time educating individuals on financial literacy, financial independence, and financial freedom so that, again, they can reach their personal and professional financial goals, whatever that may be. I'm also a board member of the National Association of Black Accountants, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, treasurer of my son's PTA, I'm a full-time mom, and I am also 100% debt-free. And so what that means is I don't owe anybody anything. I don't have a mortgage, although I own a house. I don't have a car note, and I have a car. I have my education, but I don't owe student loans. I don't have credit card debt. And the freedom that it gives me allows me to be able to create additional memories, not just for myself, but for my family, for my friends, for my community. I'm just able to do a whole lot more. And there's not a ton of bricks on my shoulders at all time. And it's just a lifestyle that, again, allows me to be here so that I can educate others so that they can do, may not be 100% debt free, but they can at least be on that path. Okay. The story that I shared about my siblings, just to give a recap on all of them, my mom, like I said, she was that first person that went to college because she wanted to become independent, become free. And by her going to college, it encouraged all of her children to also go to college. My siblings and I all graduated from Howard University. And like I mentioned, we were all homeless. We are all homeowners, my mom, as well as all of my siblings. A few of us own our houses outright. But again, it was that one person that changed the trajectory for our entire family. So again, I don't know if that person is on this call today, that may be that driving force. You may be tired, you may be winded, you may be exhausted, but just think about the difference that you may be making for yourself, for your children, siblings, friends, nieces and nephews, whatever that family looks like for you, you may be that person that's charged with changing a trajectory for yourself and them. All right, so what we'll discuss today, we're going to talk about some key financial literacy terms. We're going to talk about how do you develop those personal financial goals, how to reach those financial goals, and then we're going to talk about some financial tools that a lot of people are using today, peer-to-peer payment, debit cards versus credit cards, and then we're going to get into budgeting, and then we're going to tie that connection into credit reports. A lot of things I like to talk about as it relates to budgeting, it's actually that ground zero of once I've defined my financial goals and I've developed that budget and I follow that budget will then allow me to control my spending. When you control your spending, you're naturally going to be able to contribute more to your debt. When you're able to contribute financially more to your debt decreases, your credit score increases. The things that you want from your personal financial goals then become easily attainable. And when it becomes easily attainable, your credit score is also higher. With a higher credit score, the things that you pay for, the interest on a mortgage, a car note, car insurance, those things actually become cheaper simply because your credit score is higher. So a lot of times out here individuals tell me, you're rich. No, I'm definitely not rich. However, because I've do my spending according to a budget, because I've controlled the debt, because I've paid down and eliminated debt, my credit score has naturally gone up. And simply because that credit score has gone up, the things that everyday people, mostly everyday people have to pay for, I pay a reduced amount simply because, again, my credit score is higher. So again, the things that I'm going to give to you guys, the things that we're going to discuss will hopefully aid you in the ability to control your spending, pay down debt, to increase your credit score, to ultimately have lower expenses. Any questions before I get started? Okay, just check okay. All right, so financial literacy, we hear it a lot. Whether it's in church, in schools, on TV, financial literacy is essentially knowing how to spend, save, and manage your money effectively and efficiently. You don't have to be a financial advisor, an accountant. You don't have to be in finances. You just need to know, honestly, what's coming in, how can I control what has to go out, and how can I make the most use of the resources that I have. And then financial independence is having enough money to live the life that you want without having to have a job unless you want one. So like I mentioned, I'm now 100% debt free. I work because I want to, not because I have to. But again, it allows me to be able to do a lot more things that interest me, that allow me to be able to reach some personal goals that I have. Savings and investments will also provide income for the rest of your life. And so I know that Lisa talked about session 2 is dealing with financial planning with James Brown. And then session 3 is dealing with estate planning. All of these 3 sessions that are lined up for you guys, if you attend part 1, part 2, and part 3, again, it's going to really create that complete circle of being able to not only provide for yourself, but making sure that, like Lisa mentioned with the estate planning, that once your life ends or even before it ends, you're already taking the necessary steps to be able to transfer the wealth. All right. A financial plan is essentially a plan that you have for your money. I can't define that for you. No one in this room can define that for you, but only you can really decide what is the plan that I have for my money? What are the goals that I have? And so we'll talk about that. And then financial stewardship is basically the responsibility of managing your financial resources wisely and making sure that you're executing those duties with integrity and ethical conduct. So just making sure you're doing the right things with your money. And one of the things that you'll learn is once you're doing the right things with your money, it's kind of like going to school and making good grades. If you go to school and you do what the teacher says and you're making good grades, the report cards with the high GPA will come. The applying for scholarships and actually receiving the scholarships will come. The offers for the good job will actually come. So if you see that you are, once you start doing, becoming a better financial steward of your money, you'll see that you'll suddenly be blessed with even more financial resources that would allow you to be able to reach all of those goals. All right, so I like to start, and I hope you guys are taking notes so that you can tie these things back together. The first step into developing a budget is actually defining your short and long-term goals. Those short and long-term goals will serve as your motivation. If you don't have a motivation at hand, if you don't even know where you want to do with your money once you get it, it's really not going to give you the energy that you need to keep moving forward. So developing your short-term goals is essentially anything that you want to achieve within 12 months or less. It could be if you are trying to go to college or have a child that wants to go to college, it could be tuition, books, clothes, transportation, such as a vehicle. It could be tickets to a concert or a sporting event. Or it could simply be something that is like an emergency fund. So if something comes up, you need to repair your car, building that emergency fund. I just want to poll, or if anyone wants to come off mute or go into the chat, what are some of your short-term financial goals? Anybody can share. One person? Any of the panelists, do you want to share a short-term financial goal that you may have?
Hey, yeah, and this is Lisa. I'm looking to establish better business credit, and
Okay.
I'm able to do that though because I have solid personal credit. So I'm really looking to take advantage of that.
Okay, awesome. So establishing business credit is great.
We have a few attendees that have their hand
Uh-huh.
up. I'm gonna let them talk. Iman? If you're talking, we can't hear you. You're gonna have to unmute.
Oh, gotcha. I just unmuted. Thank you. I would say travel.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I would say travel. I think that's the biggest expense.
Yep. So actually, that's actually one of my short-term goals. Now that I have been able to reduce debt, I do like to travel, whether it's short distance or long distance. So that's actually a very common short-term goal that a lot of individuals have, wanting to be able to take vacations with their families. Anybody else before I move on?
We did have one other person, but they put their hand down. If you still want to come off mute, let me know by raising your hand.
Okay. And I'll just move on. And once you've developed your short-term goals, I like to say it's good and wise to at least develop 3 short-term goals. And again, that's going to essentially serve as your motivation. so that once you're able to reach some of those short-term goals, it's really going to give you the energy. It's like running a race and then taking a sip of water. It's going to like really replenish your soul and your body to be able to stay the course and continue to go. Once you've developed your short-term goals, you then want to be able to develop your long-term goals. And long-term goals are things that are going to take much longer than 1 year. Some common things that I've heard from individuals for long-term goals are being able to pay off a credit card, being able to purchase a car or pay off a car, contributing to retirement, paying off debt. An emergency fund is something that will always be a short-term and a long-term goal because we can never really truly plan for emergencies that may come up. Anybody in the room wants to share what their long-term goals are?
Okay, we have Michaela. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You can come off mute.
Yes, you pronounced it right. One of my long-term goals is to buy a home.
Okay, awesome. Yep. So some of the things that we're talking about today will definitely give you the tools that you need to help you to be able to at least position yourself to be able to buy a home in the future. Anybody else?
Yes, Sister Cheryl Shaw, did you want to still speak? You can go ahead and come off mute.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of people just being debt-free, period.
Right. Yep. You know, one of the things that when I was purchasing a home, it was during a recession back in 2008 and 2009, and lenders weren't giving out loans. And one of the things that helped me to be able to purchase a home, the lender said it wasn't because of my credit score, it wasn't because of my income. One of the things that was a determining factor of being able to buy my house was essentially having a savings account that when you purchase a home, they want to see a few months of your bank statements. And when I shared my savings account statements, it was the slowly seeing an increase as opposed to using a savings account as a checking account. And he said in that type of market, it required discipline. And because he was able to see that discipline, that was a determining factor that encouraged or allowed that bank to even extend me the opportunity to purchase a home. So you may think is I need to get this magic number or I need to get this magic credit score. But sometimes it could be, again, just something as simple as I'm consistently saving, whether it's $25, $50, whatever that amount is, you just want to show some sort of consistency. So starting a business and definitely paying down debt or at least reducing debt. It may not be easy for everyone to pay off the debt, but definitely to reduce it to a manageable amount. Anybody else before I move on?
Yeah, we have two more.
Yep.
Iman, I'm gonna go ahead and allow you to come off mute.
Thank you. I always got something to say. And
We love that.
and I would like to piggyback off of what some of the others said. Just having money there, emergency,
Right.
paying off debt,
Yep.
and just having that cushion
Yeah.
to know that you're not like paycheck to paycheck or
Right.
you have to wait on certain things with this paycheck to take care of something else.
Right. One of those things about establishing an emergency fund that worked for me early on was, and I know everyone doesn't get a tax refund check every year, but if in any instance where you may be coming into a lump sum of money, whether it may be a bonus at work, if it may be a tax refund check, whenever you get a large amount of money, try to always put a portion of it away. And that way you at least have something, because like I mentioned, we can never really plan for all emergencies. But sometimes we can anticipate that some things are going to come up, such as car repair service, or, you know, if you have children, they may need, you know, eyeglasses or just something that you're not really thinking about on a regular basis, but you just want to start contributing, even if it's just $25 a pay period, you want to put something away because, again, it's really those emergencies that really kind of knock us off of our track when it's time to reach our personal financial goals. Anybody else before moving on?
We had one come through in the chat. Somebody else is also trying to purchase a home, Ms. Chanel Jones. And that is it. Those are all the hands.
Awesome. All right. All right, so when we talk about how do I reach those goals, so again, once you define the short-term goals and then you define those long-term goals, you then have to create a plan on, okay, well, I've now determined what I want. How do I get it? One of the things that we're talking about here is budgeting, being able to manage the financial resources that you have. What's coming in? How do I manage it? And then what's going out? Another way to help you to expedite the process to reach your personal financial goals, depending on your availability or your free time or your skill sets, getting a part-time job is always an easy way to help you to get your personal financial goals. A lot of times individuals, like Iman mentioned about, they may be living from paycheck to paycheck. So being able to put some money away to have some fun with, sometimes is unattainable. So you have to ask yourself, what can I do in this moment to assist me in reaching my goals? If I'm overspending in my current paycheck, what can I do differently? And again, one of those things is part-time employment. If we have any individuals that have an entrepreneurial spirit, or if there is some talent that you may have that you can make some money off of, you may want to explore that avenue. For individuals that may be in college, or you may be planning for children that are in college, think about financial aid grants, perhaps scholarships, and then your retirement contributions. Some of our long-term goals is the ability to be able to retire, and we want to be able to retire comfortably so we can spend our later years in life doing the things that matter most, maybe spending time with family, maybe traveling. But you want to make sure that you are, in order to have those retirement contributions in the future, you actually have to start today. And then also investing. Investing is one way that will also help you to reach your personal financial goals. One of the things that assisted me in being able to reach financial goals, once I wanted to get the house and then I got the house, it was now time to furnish the house. And again, when we talk about living paycheck to paycheck or not being able to put money to an emergency savings fund, it was at that time that I said, okay, well, I need to be able to go get a part-time job. And then whatever that goal is for your part-time job, you want to make sure that every time you get paid, you're taking that financial money and you're putting it towards that financial goal. So again, my part-time goal was to be able to furnish my house. So whenever I got paid, I made sure that that money went strictly to the ability to be able to furnish my house. Now, I understand that individuals may not be able to find time to be able to have a part-time job. Sometimes it also means if I look to my left and my right at work, is there an opportunity for me to get a promotion? That's also probably one of the best ways to be able to increase your income or be able to obtain more money simply by working, if you can, working a little harder to be able to get a promotion within your current employment. That way, again, you don't have to expend additional time. You'll already be at that right location, being able to make more money. One of the things that helps to build wealth as well is being able to educate yourself and to train yourself on being able to begin using a begin using a credit card versus a debit card as a way to reach your personal financial goals. So one of the things that I heard in terms of a personal financial goal was the ability to travel, to go on vacation. One of the things that you can do to help to be able to travel is maturing in a way where you're able to utilize credit card rewards versus a debit card. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between debit card versus credit card. So we all know that when we use, or most people know that when you use a debit card, it's convenient, it's quick, but once you swipe that card, your account is immediately deducted. Whereas on the other side, when you have a credit card, you're essentially borrowing money from a bank or a financial institution with the promise to repay whatever you've swiped on that card within 30 days or at the end of that billing statement. And if you pay it within that billing statement, there is no interest rate. However, if you spend a little bit, if it takes a little longer than 30 days to make that payment, then you didn't have to incur an interest fee. The reason why I'm talking about debit card versus credit card is because I see a lot of my clients, a lot of individuals. Hold for just a second. My apologies. So one of the things that I like to talk about with my clients is I've noticed that a lot of them primarily do all of their spending on a debit card. And when you're doing all of your spending on a debit card, one, there's pros and cons to both. But there's some protections that come along with using a credit card to protect you against fraud. And those are the things that I like to talk about with my clients. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So debit card pros and cons. Again, we know it's convenient. We know there's no annual fees. It does subconsciously help you with budgeting because you don't, once you swipe that card, it's automatically taking the money out. And then there's no interest fees like you would see with a credit card. However, the cons of using a debit card is that you have limited fraud protection. The bank doesn't have to put the money back in your account if you do experience fraud. A lot of times, if you do experience fraud in association with a debit card, the banks have the right to perform their research. They have the ability to use your banking profile, your banking history. So if you're an individual that overdrafts your account a lot, or may not be an ideal banking client or customer for them, they may not be at liberty to wanting to replace your funds. And so you want to always make sure that you are very cautious about where you are using your debit card, because we know there's a lot of scamming going on where individuals are using the credit card skimming machines to take your information. Another con of debit card is that it may cause overdraft fees, and depending on how quickly you pay those back, sometimes accounts have gotten closed because of overdraft fees. And again, debit cards don't build your credit score at all. On the flip side, credit card pros and cons offer stronger credit card protection. So if anyone fraudulently use your card, that is by law, financial institutions have to replace your money. It also provides short-term financing. And when I say short-term financing, you're able to make a purchase. Like I mentioned, you're borrowing the money with the ability or the promise that you're going to pay it eventually. When it comes down to debt, I don't always encourage individuals to immediately jump into using credit cards, because sometimes we blindly use those credit cards and we get further and further into debt. But once you learn or have the mindset of using a credit card similar to how you have the mindset of a debit card, that you're only swiping exactly the amount that you can pay back in that month, then you'll be able to really reap the benefits of the credit card for those with rewards. And one of the biggest pros that I like to educate my clients on, once they are mentally ready and have also built the discipline to be able to maximize on what credit cards have to offer, I do encourage them to utilize credit cards that come with cash back or rewards. And some of those rewards also offer travel rewards. So like an individual mentioned earlier, one of their goals is to have the ability to vacation. I, for one, with my credit card rewards company, I've been able to fly for free since 2017, and I have not paid for a flight. I think I paid maybe $300 towards a trip to Africa back in 2023. But other than that, since 2017, I have not paid for a flight at all. And it was simply from, again, not using a debit card and primarily using my spending on a credit card. And again, I only swipe what I have the ability to repay in that month. And once you, again, develop the discipline necessary to switch your mindset from the debit card transactions to the credit cards, again, you'll notice that you'll be able to, again, reach some of your goals simply from the rewards that credit cards have to offer. I can't talk about the pros with the credit cards without also talking about the cons. We all know that part of consumer debt comes from overspending. So, of course, you have to, like I mentioned, develop the discipline to be able to control your spending. Interest rate comes with credit cards because you're borrowing the money. And if you pay within the 30 days, you actually don't pay interest fees at all. So while I've mentioned that I've been able to use credit cards and to be able to travel for free, I also don't pay any interest payments, because I do monitor the due dates on a credit card, and I make sure that the balance is paid at the end of every month. And so again, that comes with, I still have that debit card mentality where I'm only spending exactly what I have. And then, but I'm also using it for credit cards so that I can get those rewards to help me reach, I like to call them fun goals, the fun goals that I have. Of course, late payment fees are cons. And then also, if you're not using the credit cards as appropriately, they may damage your credit score. Any questions related to debit card, credit card before I move on?
Yes, we do have a question. Iman, I'm gonna allow you to unmute.
Thank you. So Ann, no, I know normally, and I hope I don't get too much in the weeds with this, but I know normally credit cards are kind of used for big purchases, otherwise smaller, like household expenses, gas, utilities, groceries, things like that. If you keep it to just those expenses, let's just say household, obviously no shopping or anything like that. Do you recommend, let's say, paying, or is it recommended that you pay it, let's say, uh, half by with each paycheck?
Yeah, so basically, like you mentioned, so in addition to making just household payments, anything that you, of course, if you're splurging on a big ticket item, you may want to think about how soon can I pay this off. But any transaction that you're making, grocery store, utilities to the extent that they accept it, cell phone bills to the extent, anybody that's willing to accept a credit card payment, ideally without charging an additional fee, I would recommend making that payment with it. Again, you have to be disciplined enough to be able to understand to pay it all, because you don't want to eventually spiral out of control. But one of the things that helped me most is I get paid bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks when I get paid, I'm automatically paying my credit card to make sure that I'm paying it down. Because again, one of the things that I've stressed out is emergencies in life are just going to happen.
Right.
And you really don't know when that emergency is going to come. So if you get in the habit of making a credit card payment every time you get paid, you're at least paying it down. And remember, think about when we're going to get into budget, and we're going to have you guys to like work through budgets as well, your personal budget. You're gonna the utilities that you've already allocated, so you know you're gonna pay the water bill, the cable bill, the cell phone bill, the whatever those things are. You've already got that money allocated, so you at a minimum should be able to put that amount on your credit card. You've already allocated for groceries, so at a minimum you're going to put that grocery bill onto that credit card. And so to the extent possible, all of your, again, I encourage, just zero debit card spending, more so for the protection that, again, credit cards come with, versus using a debit card, because again, the protections and then also the rewards that come along with it. So I hope I answered your question.
You did.
Yep. Okay, great. Any others before I move on? Okay.
Yes, we have one from Lisa. Lisa, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, Ann. Yeah, I have a question about if my budget, let's just say, is $1,000, is it possible to arrange with the credit card company to only have my like spending or my limit to be $1,000 or close to that?
Yeah, so a credit card is only going to give you what you are approved for based on your credit history, meaning your credit score. These financial institutions now have alerts set up. So what I like to do is I set up all the alerts that are available. I actually set them all up. So if there's a transaction over a penny, I actually want to get a text message to my phone. That way I can kind of monitor things. You can also set up an alert that if the balance gets, I guess, close to a certain amount, you can always flag it. But just as you would check your email, well, maybe not as much as an email, but you at least want to log into your bank account, your primary account that you use. You want to at least log into it every single day, and just essentially have the alert set up. So if you know that you want your limit to be $1,000, well, again, once we start talking about the budget, that $1,000 may again be, it might be your, water bill, gas bill, electricity. It may be gas. You're already going to be planning to put that money away. And then you just want to monitor or set up alerts so that you don't overspend. And again, when you're swiping, you're really thinking about, are these things that I would normally be swiping with a debit card? So if I go to the gas station, of course, that's something that I will always be swiping with the debit card. The grocery store, those types of things is really when you're, let's just say around Christmas time. And I'll talk about in the budget, there's usually, for those that get paid bi-weekly, there's usually 2 times a year where you get paid 3 times out of the month. And that's actually when I spend the bulk of my money. So in January, I already know which month are gonna overspend because I know I love Black Friday shopping. So I know that I need to set aside money from that third paycheck that happens closer to the end of the year. I know that I set aside a lot of money there because I want to do the bulk of my just fun spending. For those that have children, we know back to school means back to school clothes, supplies, shoes. So you also want to get in a habit of thinking about what times of the year am I actually going to be spending the most money? Of course, it's not going to be foolproof, but you already know just from history, Christmas time, maybe around birthdays, back to school, holidays. Those are usually the time that people spend the most money. Also, for me, I always think about right now, because it's so cold, my electricity bill is really high between December and March. So I know around this time of the year, I actually cannot have a lot of fun. I can't do a lot of things. And I already know that going in that each month I'm going to be paying, close to, $250, maybe $300 towards my heating bill. But again, I know also on the flip side, when the summertime comes, my electricity bill is about $60. So I'm able to go out more, have a good time. So again, you guys know the highs and lows traditionally of your spending. You know when those times come up. And so when you make your budget, you're actually going to plan for the time where you want to overspend, or you're going to build in that extra money. And so we'll talk about that once we actually go through the budget. Okay. And I'll talk briefly about peer-to-peer payments. I know a lot of individuals like to, what's your Cash App, or can I Zelle you? It's good, it's quick to do something small. But again, to the extent possible, just for fraud protections and things like that, it's very limited the protections that you get when you're doing peer-to-peer payments. And so I highly recommend you stick to ideally credit card payments for the most safety. But again, if you can, debit card, but really only do transactions through Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, and the like with individuals that you trust. So if you're, making payments through the street or online, or I know a lot of times there's a lot of Instagram and social media entrepreneurs that when you book a service or a product or something, they're actually asking for a deposit, and those deposits are usually made from Cash App. So I just want to advise you guys to, and if you have young people in your life, make sure you're educating them about being very, very cautious of making a lot of Cash App, Zelle, and peer-to-peer payments because there are very limited protections associated with that. And in the past, you could, so there's a federal agency called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And so for a lot in the past, if there was fraud associated with Cash App or Zelle, and they weren't responsive, the financial institutions weren't responsive to resolving the issue, individuals were reaching out to the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. But banks and Cash App have now become a little more sophisticated, where before you even transfer that payment to the individual, they're asking you, make sure you know this person. And the reason why they're double checking that or making you click OK before you send that payment, a lot of times it's a fraud associated with it, and you can't go back to them and ask for that fraud protection. You can't ask for them to reimburse you. And so that's why I always make sure that I limit to the ability possible, I limit Cash App and Zelle transactions strictly to individuals that I know. Okay. All right, so here is essentially the meat and potatoes of what we're here today. So we're going to talk about making a budget. And so what I'm going to do is I've made a budget template that I'm going to share with you guys. Okay. Did you guys get that link, and does it work to open?
I think
Is
it's
it
saying
open?
you need access.
Okay. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me try one more time. Wait, that was the same link, I think. Is it open? No?
Hold on.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. I think I did it again. Okay. Okay. Try, if you try, close out, try it again.
Okay, this works. Thank you.
Okay. So once you open it, I want you to click file and then you want to save a copy because any edits you make we'll be able to see. And I'm going to share my screen to this window. Can you guys see my spreadsheets?
Yes.
Okay. So again, you're gonna go to file and then you're going to download it to Excel. That way, I won't see any changes that you're making. Because what we're going to do for the rest of this time here is I want you guys to be able to at least start on making your own budget, okay? And I'm gonna walk you through essentially budgeting. Has everyone gotten it open and saved? Oh, I can't see the. Does everyone have it open? So I know that I can move on.
I don't,
Wanda,
but
were you able to get in?
What was everyone able to get in? And if you're on a phone, if you have if you download I think Google Sheets to your phone, if you click the link, you'll be able to open it. And the reason why I want you to save it to your to download is because once it's linked to your, specifically if you have a Gmail account, once you download it, it will actually save. And that way, when I do my budget, I have the option of doing it from a computer, or I can just grab my smartphone, which is what I do the most. Once I've prepared my budget, I'm actually making sure that I'm making payments right from my phone on payday. So it's very simple. I know some people may like to write things down on paper. If that makes you most comfortable, you can very much do this on paper. But again, if you at least download Google Sheets to your phone, if you're on a mobile device, you can very well do this from your phone. And again, it'll sync to your email. So once you get home or to your work or wherever your computer is, these changes that you make on a phone will also sync back to your computer. Okay. And do most people have it up? And that way I can just go ahead and proceed?
yes.
Okay, so again, you're gonna click file. You're gonna download, you're gonna open it to a Microsoft Excel, or you can make a copy. If you make a copy, it'll also be linked to your, it'll automatically be linked to your email account. So sorry, my apologies for that as well. So two options, download to Excel or click file and then make a copy, and then you can start populating this, okay? And so once you have it open, you're gonna start making edits to it, all right? And so and if someone has a question in the chat, just let me know because I don't have the screen up, so I can't see it. So I'm just gonna change this to, I have it here to insert your name. And so I'll just put and monthly budget, okay? You can title it to, whatever your budget is, how the Smith family budget, so-and-so's budget, whatever you just wanted to call it, okay? I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom and you see where it says January 2025, February 2025, all the way through December. So essentially I make my budget for the year at the start of the year, okay? Let me minimize this video now. Sorry, this toolbar is in the way. Okay. So I have January 2025 all the way to December 2025. And essentially, like I mentioned, I actually plan my budget all year. And so I know at baseline of what I make every 2 weeks. and I just plug that in for every month. And like I mentioned, I know which months I'm going to get paid 3 times out of the month. And so I know that that's the time that I'm going to plan to spend the most money. Okay. And if it's not that exact month that I need to expend the most money, so let's say I may get paid 3 times a month in May, but like I mentioned, back to school is in August. I may put aside a little bit of money in my savings account with the intent that I'm going to pull that money out when school starts because I have to buy school clothes, shoes, and those types of things. Okay. Some people, it's usually around their birthdays. They want to make sure that they be able to celebrate their birthday the way they want to celebrate their birthday. So whatever your vice is, you just want to build it in. All right. So I'm back at January and I'm plugging in. I have a monthly budget, and you can call it whatever you want. In rows, so in rows 4, 5, and 6, this is essentially where you get paid from your job. Okay. So if you have one job and row 4, where I say salary job number 1, how much comes to your bank account when you get paid? And that's the amount that you're going to put in this field here. So I'll just put 2,500 here. Okay. So I know every 2 weeks, and when I have monthly income on your payday, if your payday is different, go ahead and make changes. So for example, I get paid on the Saturday. So I'm going to put 1/4 and 1/18. So just go ahead and change your dates. Okay. And that way, you know, okay, on January 4th and on January 18th, I expect to get $2,500 because that's the amount that's deposited into my bank account every pay period. Okay. If you have another job, go ahead and put in, you know, how much you expect to get from that part-time job. One of the things that I always do with my budget, even though I have part-time and supplemental income, I don't ever want to rely on my part-time and supplemental income because I know my part-time and supplemental income is strictly for having fun. But my job, my paycheck that I get from my primary job, I want to make sure that the money that I get from my primary job is enough to pay my bills every single month. Okay. So again, you have the option of adding your full-time job and any part-time job that you may get, or you can just keep with your primary job. Okay. Row 5, I have a line for a bank balance, meaning once I get paid, so on payday, when I wake up, I'm making sure $2,500 has come in from my paycheck, and then bank balance. Let's say I had $35 left in my account. One of the things I want to communicate about bank accounts, I recommend for all of my clients, the transaction when you the account where your paycheck goes, there is absolutely no debit card spending coming out of that account. And the reason why I recommend that is because your job is supposed to, at a minimum, pay for your living expenses. And when I say living expenses, I mean your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, car note, car insurance, basically the things that you have to have, the electricity, the water, the phone bill, and you want to make sure that stuff is covered. Things like going to a Beyonce concert, going to the nail shop, those things are nice, but it's actually not a requirement. So if you ever have to control your costs, if you ever have to control your spending, at a minimum, you always want to make sure that your job is covering, again, your ability to live at home, essentially. Does it provide a roof over your head and your utilities? You're going to open, you should have a second bank account. That second bank account is actually where your allowance is. And so when I say allowance, is exactly what I'm like a teenager with an allowance. Once you get paid and you've allocated your budget, you're actually going to train your mind to give yourself an allowance. And that allowance should allow you to, you know, go to the nail shop, the barber, the hair salon. If you like going out to dinners or restaurants, then that's the you're going to use your allowance for that. But you're going to build into the ability to do that. Okay. So you've plugged in your salary from your job. You've plugged in, if you have any other income, you've plugged in your bank balance. And like I mentioned, that account that you get your paycheck, there shouldn't be, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A. If you look at my, the account where my paycheck goes, you will never, ever see Safeway, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A. You'll never see anything other than Pepco, DC Water, Verizon, you know, whatever those built, T-Mobile, you'll only see those things coming out of that account. And the reason why I did that is because, again, I never wanted to overdraft the account when my paycheck goes, because the reason I work is to be able to have a roof over my head, lights on, water running. And so I always wanted to make sure, and that was very important, especially in the beginning of first purchasing a house. You know, you just really don't know what emergencies are going to pop up, and I wanted to be able to cover it. Okay. So again, once you've covered your salary and your bank balance, row 7 should tell you how much you have in your bank account. And so when I get paid every other Saturday, I'm looking at I make sure my paycheck went into my account. I make sure my bank balance is recorded. And once line 7 is equal to what I see on my bank account, then I know it's time for me to start paying my bills. Okay. Once we go to row 10, I want you guys to start plugging in. If you have a mortgage or a rent, just plug in what that dollar amount is. If you have electricity, water, gas, start plugging in what those things are. So I'm just going to throw some things out there. I'll put 1,300. I'll put 900 here. For those that have a mortgage, I recommend to my clients, you have to work with your lender, but I recommend making payments to your mortgage lender, splitting your payment in half and then making a payment every 2 weeks. If you make half of your payment every 2 weeks, that actually cuts down about 4 years off your mortgage. You can't just do this on your own. You actually have to call the bank and make sure you ask them and tell them, I plan to, I like to make biweekly payment, half of my mortgage payment every 2 weeks. Most loan providers will allow you to do that. Not all. Some loan providers, they don't want you to pay your mortgage off because quickly, because they want the ability to be able to continue to make money off of you as much as possible. So for those of you that already own your home or have a mortgage, I highly recommend calling your bank and asking if you can switch to a biweekly payment where you pay half of it. Because again, right there, that cuts off 4 years of your mortgage. And that was one of the things that I did to help me expedite the process to be able to pay off my mortgage, was making half of my payment every 2 weeks. And again, it's the same amount. Essentially, it's accounting for, remember I said there's 2 times out of the year where you get paid 3 times. So those 2 extra payments, you're really just making 1 extra payment a year. So even if your mortgage company says, oh, we don't allow customers to make a payment twice a month, then you just know once a year you can just send them a payment and ask them to put it towards your principal, and it would essentially do the same thing. It'll pay off about 4 years, like maybe 3.6 years off, but around 4 years it'll pay off your mortgage earlier. Okay. I'm going to plug in electricity and the rest of my bills. One of the things you want to think about is, so I have 2 columns. If you're if some of your bills are due at the beginning of the month and others are due at the end of the month, then I want you to make sure that you're putting the payments closest to when you get paid. So I'm going to plug in my utilities. I know those are all due at the beginning. Transportation, I think I pay about 75 for gas. I have to fill up often. So I know every 2 weeks I'm going to put some gas in. I'll skip 150 here, 150. I'm just throwing out numbers. Car note, just go ahead and plug it in. I think that was about. Okay. Oops, no. Okay. Maybe. And again, you're just plugging in the numbers, and I've already done the calculations here. So if you scroll down, you'll be able to see if you're overspending or underspending, okay? Okay, so car note, car insurance, and anything that you need to change that's not applicable, go ahead and make the necessary changes. Okay. Mm. What else do I have? Okay. If you need to make changes to your subscriptions, go ahead and make those subscriptions. Okay, and I'm just gonna plug in numbers here. Okay. Okay. Any questions as people are filling those out? Okay, so essentially, right now you guys should have written down your total income for the month. So if you get paid bi-weekly, you want to put in again the amount that comes into your paycheck. I know some people have financial allotments where they may have, let's just say $50 going to another account. I want you to try to put your whole, whatever your gross paycheck, I mean, not gross, I'm sorry, whatever that net paycheck is that goes to a bank account before it may be allocated, just put everything down in this account for now, because sometimes you might need to tweak how much you have, tweak mean adjust. You might have to adjust how much money is going to these various accounts that you may have allocations for your bank account. You want to make sure that you're listing all of your expenses, okay? One thing that I also want to remember, so the things that you notice in rows 10 through row 34, those are things that for the most part you have to have. Subscriptions 31 through 34. I'm not really an advocate of subscriptions, but I know a lot of people have it. I usually recommend my clients move subscriptions to your allowance, because those are things that are nice to have, but you actually don't have to have it. Like you don't need Apple Music, you don't need Amazon Prime, you don't have to have all of these things. They're just nice to have. And so I always encourage my clients for subscriptions that actually should be coming out of your allowance. That way, if you have the money, you keep it. And if you don't have it, you should actually turn it off. But things like transportation and your car to be able to get to work, your utilities, your mortgage, your rent, those aren't things that you can really be flexible with. You actually have to make those payments. Credit cards, you have to make those payments. Childcare, you have to make those payments. So those are things that you really have to be able to pay. But the other stuff like hair and nails, I don't really want you guys to put that in there, because your allowance, which starts at row 38, that's where you could put maybe hair, nails, ideally subscriptions, because again, those aren't things that you have to have. I'll just put grooming to cover barbing and salon. Grooming, nails.
We have one question in
Sure.
the chat when you have a chance.
Okay.
Or Wanda, did you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Oh, yeah. So the when I create the budget, is this a projection or actual? So excuse me, it's actually a combination of both. I know what my salary is, so I already know what the income is going to be for the entire year. So that's very much actual. Some things are going to be like your mortgage, your car note, your car insurance. Those are things that are going to be actuals, okay? Things that may fluctuate, like I said, I know that my heating costs between December and March are going to be about $250, and I know in the summertime it's actually less than $100. So those are things that are going to be projections based off history, right? So you guys should at a minimum know what your salary is. Again, that you guys can still see the spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a
So
follow-up. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
I have a follow-up. If these, I understand in terms of your monthly expenses, I get that. But when you get down to your allowances, you may or may not spend that money. So if these are projection, where do you show your projection versus your actual?
So I actually don't do projection versus actual. So here, the budget is your projection, right? On payday, this is where I make my changes. So before I make any spending, right, I basically make those updates in real time on payday. Okay. So in January, or actually in December, I will make my budget for the upcoming year for all 12 months. Those are technically the projection, because I know what the income is going to be, and I have an idea of what the expenses should be for the whole entire year. on payday before I make any transaction. Okay. And I'm glad you asked that question. So, like I mentioned, I wake up Saturday, I make sure that I have my bank account deposited and make sure I've recorded my bank balance. And then the line on the row on actual on row 7, this purple bar, this is where I make sure, does my spreadsheet match the dollar amount that's in my bank account? And when that answer is yes, this projection then becomes an actual, because I'm now going to be able to, this is the amount of money that I can now use to pay off my expenditures for this particular biweekly period. Okay. And what I'm doing here, we're plugging in the numbers. I don't actually make the payment until I've plugged in all of these numbers and I scroll down to line 35 and line 37, and I make sure that it's not a negative number. Because when I talk about overdrafting and things with your bank account and making sure that the reason why I don't have a debit card associated with the bank account where my paycheck goes is because I don't want any overdraft fees. I don't want to be charged. I want to make sure that I have enough money to pay my bills. So I'm actually turning this projection into an actual. And once I figured out what am I paying this month, the next step is to, once the mortgage or the rent payments are made, I actually change the sale. So once I get paid, I like to change it to green. I'm sorry, yellow. For me, that means that I've double checked that number and everything checks out. There's no issues. When it's time for me to make my payment, some things I have auto, which was when I had my mortgage, it was on auto payment because I wanted it to come out every 2 weeks. But once the payment comes out, I change it to yellow. And that lets my mind know that I've made that payment. Same thing. Once I've plotted everything in my spreadsheet, I'm now going to, on Saturday, and again, I do it from the comfort of my bed because this same spreadsheet is attached to your Gmail account now, but it's also, once you download Google Sheets to your phone, it also will be on your phone. So you can literally lay in your bed and be able to do everything. So I now go through and I'm paying Pepco. I'll log into my Pepco account. I'll pay the $150. And again, before I plug these numbers in, so like the Wanda just mentioned, is it projections or actual? Again, it's projections when I'm making it for the year. But as I get paid, or once Pepco sends me my notification and say, this is the bill that's due this month, I'm actually changing that number from 150 to the actual amount. So I know, like Pepco, it may, like I said, it may jump to about 220 in the month of January because we're in a dead of winter. Okay. Water bill, once I get that notification of what my water bill is, I'm taking this projection out and I'm actually putting the actual amount in there. Okay. And once I'm replacing these numbers with the actuals, I go through and I make the payments. And I'm always color coding and changing. Once I make a payment and a transaction goes through, I'm making sure I color it. When I allocate $75 for gas, I don't actually make the transaction out of this account. That transportation for gas as well as groceries actually goes in my allowance account, because that means that those are things that I want to be able to swipe for. And like I mentioned, I don't have Amoco, Shell, BP. You won't see those things in my account because, again, I really want to make sure that the bills are paid. Okay. So I'm going through and I'm allocating that 75. I'll actually add a note and say transfer to allowance account. Okay. That way I know I got $75 that I'm working with towards gas. Childcare, you usually make like pay with check, or I don't know if they may do online accounts now. But once you make those payments or that transfer, again, you're just going to change it to yellow. Okay. And you're going to do this groceries. This is also something you won't see Safeway or Giant or Wegmans in my account. But what I'll actually do is transfer this amount to my allowance account. And when I say allowance, that money is actually just holding there to be able to pay my credit card bill. Because again, I'm using my credit card, one, for financial protection, right? But then part two, I actually want the rewards so that I can be able to travel. So when I say I have $300 for groceries, I don't use my debit card for $300. I actually take my credit card and I'm swiping at the grocery store, and then I transfer that $300 actually to my credit card account. Again, I'm only swiping things that I would normally be able to pay for and purchase. So I hope I answer your question, Wanda.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So we have another question in the chat.
Yep.
1 second. You can go ahead and come off mute, Iman.
Thank you. So Ann, I have a kind of a two-part question. I was
Yep.
looking at my computer battery. So for allowances, withholdings out of your check. I
Yeah.
do those, pre-tax deductions. Um,
Mhm.
that goes like to a savings account.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when I get paid, I know that, X amount of money already went to a savings account and this is what I
Right.
have. So should I use that balance to do my spreadsheet since I already know that that other money is going to an account?
Yes.
Okay.
So and I'll always say this is like a response that the IRS always have. It really depends. So essentially, if you have enough money that contributing, making that financial allotment and go to your savings account does not cause you to miss your credit card payments or miss your traditional billing, by all means, go ahead and keep it up.
Okay.
For some of my clients, after we make this financial snapshot, we see that they're overspending every pay period. So if you're overspending, does it make sense to send $150 if you are, going further and further into debt,
Right.
having to rely on your credit card? So
Right.
if there's money left over and after you've still made that contribution to your savings account, yeah, I recommend keeping it up. But if
Okay.
you've plugged in your numbers and you scroll down to line 37 and
Uh,
it's a negative number, you may
okay.
want to think about, do I need to contribute this amount to my savings? Can I reduce it? Just until you can get a handle on your spending, okay?
Okay. And then my second part question is, and I know we've changed a lot, so a lot of people don't even use cash anymore. But I know someone who was able to save roughly about 10 to 12,000 a year.
Right.
She did like a mental budget in her head, and so she would take out what she had left and whatever. Let's say, for instance, it was $200 to last her till the next paycheck. Once she was out of that $200, that was just
Absolutely.
what happened.
Yeah. So
Um,
even, yeah. Mhm.
so do you recommend, using cash as maybe a way to say, okay, this is it, or would you
Yeah.
dump all of the money?
So, yep. So, I talked about when I recommend my clients use credit card is after they've gained that discipline to not overspend. And it also depends on your personality. So me, I'm very clumsy with things. I would actually lose cash if I had cash. And once you lose cash, there's nobody that's going to replace it for you. So the reason why I use a credit card is because sometimes I'm like, where did my credit card go? And I might have left it at a counter at a store. And again, I'm actually not worried because if somebody uses a credit card, I'm able to just call a bank and say, hey, that wasn't my transaction. And again, by law, financial institutions have to replace your credit card money immediately. There's no waiting, there's no research. And you call them, you say it wasn't my transaction. That's it. That's
Okay,
the type of support and protection that I need in my life.
absolutely.
Cash, some people they do the envelope method where they're using cash, but again, I know I lose cash. So if you're very responsible and you don't lose cash, anything can happen. You could be robbed. I mean, just so many things
Yeah,
can happen.
yeah.
But what I like to do is I would say that same cash method, you
Mm-hmm.
could put it in allowance account. So I recommend my clients have at least two accounts. Remember, one account is where your paycheck is going. The
Right,
second account that's where you move your allowance. So, like the example your friend said, where she has, let's just say $250, and once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah, I absolutely recommend you put that 200 into that account. And if you are not ready to use a credit card, then yeah, you use a debit card and you're chipping away at that $200. That's where you go and do your personal grooming, your nails, you need Apple Music or those types of things. A child may have a field trip, just little things that may come up. You're actually chipping away at that $200.
oh,
And then once that $200 is done, well, you're eating from home for the rest of the pay period until you get that next paycheck.
absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. And I see there's a time check. And so yes, the mental math is good, but we have so much going on in our adult lives that sometimes it's not practical for us to remember because a lot of time overdraft charges is simply because we forgot to make a payment for something. Okay.
Right.
So what we did for the month of January, that's the same thing that you would do for every single month. The one thing that I would just add is for those of you that have credit card debt and you're interested in paying that credit card debt off, you will there's several different methods that you can use to pay down that credit card debt. You can do the snowball method where you're paying the smallest debt first. So let's say you're paying $50 towards a credit card, and then once you pay that credit card off, you're taking that $50 and then you're applying it to the next credit card. Or if let's say you have a car note and you have 6 more months of payments, your credit card. So in this example, I have the car note is which is row 16. I have that the car note is $540. So let's say, and this is actually how I paid my debt off. Once I paid that car note off, before I didn't even enjoy spending the $540 or whatever the dollar amount was. I took that same $540 and then started tackling credit card debt. And that's what you want to do with that snowball method. Once you pay something off, you just want to clap for yourself, but you don't want to start spending that money. You want to take that money and you actually want to apply to the next debt. And then you want to, once that debt is paid off, you take that total amount and then you apply to the next debt. And that will allow you to pay some of those smaller debts off. And once you see your debts disappearing, you actually get the motivation to keep it going. You can also do the avalanche method where you are paying the biggest debt first. Paying the biggest debt first, sometimes you might lose momentum because it's so big and it's like, oh, it's going to take months, maybe years for me to, to pay it off. So you want to just plan for, if it's a small amount, you may want to divide, okay, I have 26 pay periods this year. If I divide these payments or if I pay over the amount, can I pay it off within 2025? Or can I pay it off within 6 months and then I switch to the next credit card? And so you're really kind of making an idea or a plan for how you plan to pay that debt. And again, you're just going to plug in the numbers. So once you've made January's budget, you actually can copy and paste these things into February, into March, into April, into May. And you want to make sure, like I mentioned, you want to pay attention to, again, there's 2 months out of the year where if you get paid biweekly, there's 2 months out of the year where you're actually going to get paid 3 times. And again, that is going to be in those months. That is going to be the time that you may take some money to put towards a summer vacation, or you want to take a lot of the money and you may want to make a payment to your mortgage. You may want to pay your credit card, whatever it is that you're thinking about. Like I said, for me, those 2 times out of the year, that's when I actually have the most fun with my money. And I know for me, I like Black Friday. So I'm actually going to, save a little bit of that money so that I can put it towards Black Friday shopping for me. Any questions about the budget before I move on? Okay. I'm going to switch back to the spreadsheet. I'm sorry, to the presentation. Oops. No. Sorry. All right. So budgeting tips. So again, we've talked about having financial goals. You don't want to compare your financial journey to anyone else. So yes, I may have shared that I don't have debt, but again, my journey is not your journey. My family size is not your family size. My income may not be your income. So again, you can't compare your ability to pay down debt or to move forward based on someone to your left or to your right, because you don't know what their financial background or family size or structure is. So again, stick to your financial journey. Don't be afraid to trim the budget. So once you guys have plotted all of your numbers within your spreadsheet, that's an opportunity for you to take the time to look and see, where can I cut the cost? Once a year, I always call my creditors and make sure that I'm paying the least amount possible. So once a year, I will call my car insurance company, homeowners insurance company. I don't have cable or internet anymore, but when I did, I called them to make sure, hey, am I paying the cheapest amount? Or sometimes I may even ask them, hey, when I call them, can you transfer me to the cancellation department? And a company would rather adjust their billing, adjust their pricing than to see you go. A good company, I should say. And so once a year, like I said, I will always call. I wouldn't call on a Friday because just like you're tired and exhausted at the end of the week. On a Monday, when people have had a good weekend, they're back to work, I will call all of my creditors and say, I don't need cable. Transfer me to the cancellation department. And they'll say, well, before you go, why are you canceling? And if they ask that question, 9 times out of 10, they are going to work with you to lower your costs, lower your bill. Even with my home security system, I had no intentions of leaving, but I got a flyer, I think, in the mail for maybe a $25 security company that I was not even interested in going to, but it made me call the security company just to say, hey, transfer me to the cancellation department. And they'll say, why? And I said, well, I just got a flyer in the mail for $25 a month for home security. And they said, well, you know what? We actually don't have that price, but we would hate to see you go. We'll match that cost for you. They didn't ask to see the flyer. They didn't ask to see the promotion. Again, they just didn't want me to go. And so I do make that call once a year just to make sure that I'm paying the least amount possible. When you make your schedule, a budget is not a restriction on being able to spend. I actually am able to spend more, not because I have more, but just because, like I mentioned, I've already mapped out how my money is going to be spent. It's just every 2 weeks, I'm executing. I've already laid everything out for the year. All I'm doing is executing every 2 weeks. And like I mentioned, I've already built in a time where I'm actually going to have more fun with my money. And then you want to track your progress each month. You just want to take a look at, where you've been, where you're going, and then always try to create a buffer. Again, that buffer will account for any, well, not any, but will account for some surprises that may come up. So like I mentioned, I know that my bills are expensive. My heating costs are expensive during the winter, but those on the flip is less than $100 in the summertime. So I'm always making sure that I'm not having as much fun during the winter months. But definitely in the summertime, I do have extra money to be able to do some of the things that I like. Really quick with the credit report. So essentially a credit report is a snapshot of your credit history, and it gives lenders an opportunity to see what is your ability to repay them back. So a credit report is similar to a report card in school. It takes a look at anybody that you owe, the balances that you owe, the years that you've had with those lenders, and again, how well have you done with paying them back on time? Again, it's an indication of how trustworthy you are with other people's money. And when I talked about the budget, remember I talked about that cycle. In the beginning of this conversation, I talked about we are developing our personal financial goals, which will lead us into and give us the motivation to develop that budget to follow. Once you're developing that budget, you are naturally paying down your debt because you're seeing exactly where your money is going. Once your debt is decreased, your credit score increase. With an increased credit score, car insurance, homeowners insurance, your car note, your mortgage, credit card interest rates, all of those things actually drop. So you then begin paying a low amount, not because you're making more money. You're actually paying a lower amount simply because your credit score is high. So my goal for my clients have their personal financial goals, and I actually want to work with them to help them to reach it. But my goal is to always to increase their credit score, because once their score is increased, again, the things that they're paying for each month is actually lower. Okay. This is a range of the credit scores from 300 to 850. I think a couple of people mentioned on the call that some of their financial goals is to purchase a home. One of the good things that you can do is pull in that credit score before you're interested in getting a home, because you want to know, well, where does my score fall now? And I can now work on increasing it. That way, once you have the savings account built up, once you have the some of your debt paid down, you don't want to wait a year or two and then get to the bank and they say, I know you got this savings account, you're ready to buy a house, but because of your score, we can't lend you any money, or your interest rate is so high that you can't afford it. You actually want to start today. And that way, when you're ready to buy or you're ready to purchase, you'll actually be better positioned, that the transaction is much smoother than what it would otherwise be. To help you monitor your credit report, since the pandemic, the government has, through annualcreditreport.com, the government allows you to previously request your credit report once every 12 months. But now you're able to actually request a copy of your credit report. I believe it's once a week. So you're able to get 52 credit reports from the annualcreditreport.com. So if you haven't done it, take a look, make sure that your credit report at least includes accurate information on yourself. And again, you want to use that to monitor your score. Okay. Again, that's annualcreditreport.com. I think there's another website called freecreditreport.com. Make sure you go to annualcreditreport.com. That would allow you to get a credit report from all of the 3 credit reporting bureaus once a week. Again, that has been in place since the pandemic. Sometimes people, and I'm gonna speed up a little bit. A lot of times individual asks, well, what causes bad credit or what makes up my score? It's a combination of things. So it's your payment history, your credit utilization ratio, and that credit utilization is, I have a credit card, the balance is 20,000, but I'm only using 2,000 of that credit report. That means you're not maxing out your credit cards. You may have heard individuals say maxing out your credit cards. So you're not spending that full balance. So for those of you that do have a credit card or use credit cards, you want to make sure that you're not close to that limit as possible, because those are the things that actually pull down your score. You want to keep that utilization low. Credit history. How old are your credit cards or your mortgage or your car note? That shows the maturity that you have, that you've been making payments to lenders over the years, and that accounts for 15% of your score. The type of accounts that you have, student loan accounts, car notes, mortgage, those things represent 10% of your account. And then new credit, anything that you've added within the last 12 months represents 10% of your credit score. I always recommend my clients to put a credit freeze on your credit report. I was a victim of identity theft this summer. Little things like having my credit frozen prevented individuals from being able to open up new accounts in my name. It's easy and it's free to be able to freeze your credit. So once you freeze your credit, they actually give you, the reporting bureaus will actually give you I think it's like a 4 or 6 digit PIN. And that way, let's say you are going to purchase a house or purchase a car, before the company wants to pull your credit, you just log into your account, you unfreeze it, it allows them to pull the credit, and then you put the freeze back on it. And again, I recommend that for all of my clients to be able to freeze their credit, just so that they don't get further into debt. Last slide. Some of my like top financial literacy / financial independence tips. If you marry a like-minded individual, the chances are you will reach your financial goals much faster than an individual that is either single or married to an individual that's not on the same path with them. So make sure you are surrounding yourself with an individual that is on that path to help you collectively reach those goals. Define your personal financial goals. Determine your sources of income, make that budget, live below your means as long as possible. To the extent possible, purchase a home on your starting salary. When I say starting salary, for those that are clients that are recent graduates or early in their career, I always recommend that they purchase a home off of that income, because your income is going to grow, but at some point you're going to reach a cap, and you're only going to be getting like cost of living adjustments. Your income is not going to grow significantly the way it does in earlier in your career. So I always recommend purchasing a home very early. That way you can lock in that rate. Contribute to your retirement plan. And like Melissa mentioned, I think part 3 of this session is going to talk about estate planning with wills and trusts, and the learning how to transfer wealth. You can't grow the wealth without having a plan on how it will transition to those that you will leave it to. And then lastly, teach your immediate family and your extended family to do the exact same. The more that you have healthy conversations about money and personal finance, you actually are subconsciously teaching those around you to do the same, and to also not to maybe financially depend on you as well. So that's the end of my session. If we have time for a couple questions, I can answer it. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to the organization.
Thank you so much. That was so informative, and the spreadsheet was golden. So thank you so much. Are there any questions? I see one raised hand. Iman, did you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Okay. Let's see. Am I unmuted? Oh, hold on.
Yes, you are, Iman. You're on mute.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you. I'm sorry y'all tired of me. So, Ann, on the spreadsheet, should we put our expenses, let's say your utilities, in the column closest to the due date? So, like how you said we get paid bi-weekly, should those be closer to or should we put half and half?
No, so I recommend you don't want to miss a payment. So the goal is to pay it in full every single month. So
Okay.
as long as you're not late with the payment, put it closest to when you're getting paid.
Okay, so okay, gotcha. So
Yep.
so instance we got paid on the 18th, but
Right.
something was due on the 17th, then I would plan
That for,
in
Mhm.
the 18th.
Pay with that first paycheck. There is some flexibility with due dates when it comes to credit cards. So usually, if you need your due date change, I always tell my clients, call your whether it's the water company, utility company, or even a credit card company, call them and say, can I change my due date because I wanted to align to my paycheck? Again, companies would rather you pay them on time than to be late. And so they will work with you every step of the way. You actually just have to pick up that phone and give them a call.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm. Any other questions? Okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Lisa, or anyone else.
Well, I'll go ahead and wrap us up. Andrea, this was as I expected. It was an amazing session. It was jam-packed. I truly thank you for blessing us with all of your knowledge. And I hope everyone was able to get the details on how to get in contact with you. But I think what we'll do is put those up on the screen maybe here, and then potentially send out some info so people can stay in contact with you. But feel free to shout out, how people can stay in contact with you. But I'll give you the moment or an opportunity to do that now.
I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect. So folks, feel free to stick around and get all these details. Feel free to reach out to Andrea, set up some time with her. But this was amazing. Thank you so much, Anne. I think that's it, guys. I think we can wrap up. We went the whole hour and a half, okay? It was great though. I really appreciate it, from your story to the debit card versus credit card to the actual spreadsheet, and all the way down to your little nugget to marry a like-minded individual. I love it. So thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.